What if the smallest choice you make today rewrote the entire course of your future? Imagine a drop of water falling into a still lake. Not much on its own, just a quiet ripple. But given time, another drop joins, and another, and soon the surface begins to change. That's how habits work. The smallest decision, repeated with care, compounds into something unrecognizable from where it began. And so, we begin not with grand ambition or declarations, but with this quiet truth. Tiny changes can create massive transformation. You might be sitting in your living room on your commute, maybe winding down for the night. Or maybe you're up before dawn with the urge to become someone better. Wherever you are, drop a comment and let us know. What time is it for you? And where in the world are you watching from? Now back to the story unfolding. We've been sold a myth that life changes only when we take giant leaps. Crash diets, radical routines, 30-day challenges. But here's the twist. The most enduring transformation comes not from overhaul, but from the smallest shift repeated with quiet consistency. It's like adjusting your compass by just 1 degree. That single change may seem trivial, but over time, it takes you to an entirely different destination. The secret to sustainable growth doesn't lie in pushing harder. It lies in showing up again and again, even if just for 1 minute. Think of your day, the way you brush your teeth, check your phone, pour your coffee. Over 40% of your actions are habitual, autopilot behaviors shaped not by intention, but by routine. And if so much of your life runs on loops, doesn't it make sense to redesign the code behind them? You don't need to start big. In fact, it's better if you don't. 1 push-up, 1 glass of water, 1 page read. These are your new beginnings. Too small to fail, too quiet to resist. And like a snowball, once set in motion, they gather momentum. What starts as insignificant becomes unstoppable. In 2003, the British cycling team was failing miserably, so much so that no manufacturer wanted to associate with them. Enter Dave Brailsford, who introduced the concept of aggregation of marginal gains. He focused not on massive changes, but on 1% improvements, adjusting bike seats, redesigning suits, even refining how athletes washed their hands to avoid illness. Within 5 years, they won Tour de France. Not once, but multiple times. All by chasing tiny, invisible improvements. The principle is simple. If you get 1% better each day for a year, you'll be 37 times better by the end of it. This isn't theory, it's math. But it's also mindset. A mindset that says, I don't need to change everything overnight. I just need to make this 1 moment count. This is the power of the compound effect. Invisible progress that builds beneath the surface until one day it bursts into sight. Think of a bamboo tree. It spends years growing roots underground, unseen. Then, almost overnight, it shoots up feet into the air. The question isn't if growth is happening. The question is, can you be patient enough to wait for the breakthrough? And that patience is cultivated in the act of showing up daily. Not when it's convenient, not when motivation is high, but simply as a non-negotiable part of who you are becoming. Success isn't sexy in the moment. It's repetitive, quiet, often boring. But it is powerful. It is certain. And it is yours to build. Let's bring it closer to home. Picture someone who wants to lose weight. The old script would say, cut everything, work out 2 hours a day, and punish yourself into change. The new script says, walk 5 minutes today, then again tomorrow. Swap soda for water, then again tomorrow. The old script says you need discipline. The new one says you need a system, and the system is built 1 brick at a time. We're not chasing radical shifts. We're laying foundations. We're casting votes for the person we want to become. And every action, no matter how small, is a ballot cast. You're not trying to be perfect. You're just trying to vote consistently in the right direction. Over time, the majority wins. There's freedom in this. Freedom from the all-or-nothing trap. Freedom from waiting to feel ready. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to begin. One moment, one habit, one degree. In this journey, we'll leave behind the obsession with motivation and unlock the far more powerful force of consistency. You'll learn to design your environment so it works for you, not against you. You'll build systems that run even when your willpower fades. And most of all, you'll understand that the true transformation happens not in the outcome, but in the person you become while practicing the habit. And now, as we move forward, ask yourself this. If your small actions are steering your life, what direction are you heading in? Are you drifting aimlessly, or are you choosing with intention, even if just 1%, because that's where change begins. Let's explore what happens when we stop trying to change outcomes and start transforming identity. Because who you believe you are determines everything that follows. If someone asked you who you are, what would you say? Maybe you'd list your job title, your nationality, your hobbies. But deep underneath, your behaviors whisper something far more intimate. They reveal who you believe you are. And this, more than any goal you set or plan you draft, shapes the habits you build or fail to. You might think habits are about what you want to achieve: lose weight, get promoted, write a book. But the real magic starts when you stop asking, "What do I want?" and instead ask, "Who am I becoming?" This is the shift from outcome-based to identity-based habit formation. Picture 3 concentric circles. The outermost ring is outcomes, the results you want. The next ring in is process, your systems and behaviors. But at the core lies identity, what you believe about yourself. Most people focus only on the outer layer. They want to run a marathon, not be a runner. They want to write a book, not be a writer. But the outer rings are temporary. The core is enduring. When you focus on changing your identity, everything else follows. Take Cassie, a woman who always said, "I'm not a morning person." Every January, she'd try the 5 a.m. club, and by February, she'd burn out. Until one year, she flipped the script. She began saying, "I'm someone who values a calm, focused start to my day." That shift wasn't just about alarms and coffee. It was about identity. Suddenly, waking up early wasn't punishment. It was an act of alignment. That's the power of casting votes for your future self. Every time you act in line with the identity you want to adopt, you reinforce it. One healthy meal? That's a vote for being a healthy person. One evening of writing? That's a vote for being a disciplined creator. No single action defines you, but each is a pixel in the picture of who you're becoming. And over time, those pixels form a portrait. Your identity is not fixed. It's not carved in stone by your genetics, upbringing, or past mistakes. It's a story you tell yourself, one that can be rewritten, one small action at a time. When Barack Obama decided to run for president, few believed someone with his background could win. But his campaign wasn't built on flashy promises. It was built on identity. Yes, we can. That simple phrase wasn't about outcomes. It was about who Americans could become. That belief galvanized a nation. Because identity is contagious. It spreads, and it sticks. The inverse is also true. If your actions contradict your identity, you'll feel tension, a discomfort psychologists call cognitive dissonance. That's why it feels wrong to say, "I'm healthy," after a week of fast food. Your brain wants congruence. So when your habits reinforce a new identity, your brain starts rewriting the script. Want to become a reader? Don't wait until you've read 10 books. Read one page today and say aloud, "I'm the type of person who reads daily." Reinforce it tomorrow and the next. Over time, it won't be an act. It'll be who you are. The key is specificity. Don't just say, "I want to be productive." Ask, "What would a productive person do at 9 a.m.? Don't say, "I want to be healthy." Ask, "What would someone healthy eat in this moment?" This clarity eliminates the gray areas where bad habits thrive. And it's not about volume, it's about consistency. One push-up a day won't make you strong overnight, but it will begin rewriting your internal narrative. I'm someone who honors movement. That's how roots take hold. Quietly, repetitively, deeply. And like roots, identity change takes time. It also requires environment. Surround yourself with others who reflect your desired identity. Want to write more? Join a writer's circle. Want to eat better? Spend time with people who nourish their bodies intentionally. Identity is influenced not only by your actions, but by the tribe you associate with. We are social creatures, mirroring the behaviors and beliefs of those around us. So choose your mirrors wisely. Another tool? Language. Words matter. There's a massive difference between saying, "I'm trying to quit smoking," versus "I'm not a smoker." The former keeps your old identity alive. The latter buries it. Language crystallizes belief. Use it intentionally. Start using the phrase, "I'm the type of person who," and fill in the blank. Then prove it. Want to write daily? Say, "I'm the type of person who writes every morning." Then do it, even for 5 minutes. The action cements the identity. The identity reinforces the action. It's a loop, a beautiful one. None of this requires perfection. It requires repetition. Every action is a brushstroke. The painting doesn't need to be flawless. It just needs to be yours. So, take stock. Who do you believe you are? More importantly, who do you want to become? The habits will follow. And as we continue, let's examine the invisible engine that powers both good and bad habits alike. A loop hidden beneath every behavior you repeat. You've probably heard the phrase, "We are creatures of habit." But what does that actually mean? Strip away the poetry, and you're left with a surprisingly mechanical truth. Our habits run on loops, and once you see the loop, you can start changing it. Until then, you're reacting. But after, you're designing. This loop, known as the habit loop, has 4 key elements: cue, craving, response, and reward. Let's make that real. You wake up. That's your cue. You feel groggy. That discomfort sparks a craving to feel alert. So you brew a cup of coffee, your response. And as the caffeine kicks in, your brain feels rewarded and the loop is completed. Next morning, the loop repeats. Over time, you don't even question it. You just do it. Because now, the loop is part of you. This is how your brain automates behavior. Not randomly, but through repetition and reinforcement. The more reliable the loop, the more automatic the action. Your brain saves energy by outsourcing the thinking because it has bigger things to do. Survival, creativity, problem solving. If a behavior reliably satisfies a craving, it becomes efficient, automatic, a habit. Now zoom out. This isn't just about coffee. It's about every behavior you repeat. Scrolling your phone, reaching for a snack, checking notifications, complaining, meditating, smiling. Your entire day is stitched together by these loops. And most of them, you didn't choose consciously. They were shaped by your environment, your emotions, and your repetition. That's the scary part. But it's also the opportunity. Let's say you want to build a better habit, like journaling daily. How do you start? Make the cue obvious. Maybe you leave your journal next to your toothbrush. You'll see it every night. Make the craving attractive. Pair journaling with a calming cup of tea or dim lighting. Make the response easy. Start with just one sentence. Make the reward satisfying. Check a box. Listen to a favorite playlist afterward, or just reflect on how it felt. Do this enough, and it sticks. The reverse is true for breaking bad habits. Let's take doom scrolling. You're bored. Cue. You crave stimulation. Craving. You open social media. Response. You get dopamine from novelty. Reward. Loop complete. Want to break it? Invert the structure. Make the cue invisible. Turn off notifications. Keep the phone in another room. Make the craving unattractive. Remind yourself how drained you feel afterward. Make the response difficult. Log out, uninstall the app. Make the reward unsatisfying. Track how much time you waste. Over time, the loop weakens, and then it breaks. This loop model isn't just theory. It's grounded in neuroscience. Deep in your brain, a structure called the basal ganglia automates repeated behaviors. When you first try something new, your prefrontal cortex, the rational decision-making part of your brain, works hard. But do it enough, and the task gets delegated. Habits become encoded. Fast, efficient, but rigid, which is why change feels hard. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is doing exactly what it's built to do. Preserve energy by repeating what's worked. Think about learning to drive. At first, every move is conscious. Check mirror, foot on brake, shift gear. But over time, you barely think about it. That's the habit loop at full power. But also its risk. If you learn something the wrong way, your brain won't care. It'll still automate it. So the solution? Intention. You must become the designer of your loops, not the victim of them. Start by mapping your existing habits. One powerful tool? The habit scorecard. Take a blank page and list everything you do in a typical day, from waking up to checking your phone to brushing your teeth. Then mark each habit. Plus, if it helps you become who you want to be. If it moves you away, Hassan. If it's neutral. No judgment, just awareness. This simple act turns the invisible visible. You'll start noticing the tiny, automated actions that either build you or bury you. Here's where it gets powerful. Identify the cues behind each behavior. Are they based on time, location, emotional state, people around you? Maybe you snack when stressed, or check your phone when bored, or scroll social media the moment you sit on the couch. These patterns are gold, because once seen, they can be redesigned. Let's return to stress snacking. Cue, stress after a long meeting. Craving, relief. Response, sugary snack. Reward, temporary calm. Now redesign the loop. Keep the cue. It's hard to remove work stress entirely. Keep the craving. You still want relief. But change the response. Maybe try deep breathing, a short walk, or even stretching for 2 minutes. Make the new response easy and satisfying. Soon, your brain will start linking stress with that instead. The loop evolves. You evolve. Another tool? Habit stacking. Instead of inventing new loops from scratch, attach a new habit to one that already exists. Example: after I pour my coffee, I'll review my to-do list. Or, after I brush my teeth, I'll stretch for 30 seconds. This technique works because the cue is already wired. You're just hitching a ride. And when you chain these habits together, you create rituals, a morning routine, an evening wind down, anchored not in motivation, but in momentum. This is behavioral architecture. You are not fixing yourself. You are redesigning your loops. It's not glamorous, it's not instant, but it is inevitable if you stay consistent. So tonight, take 5 minutes. Track your loops. See the invisible. Redesign just one. Because when you understand your habit loops, you reclaim authorship. You stop reacting. You begin choosing. And once you've chosen, once you've seen the path, you can begin shaping your environment to make those new cues unavoidable and those old triggers fade into the background. What if the reason you haven't changed yet isn't because you're lazy or undisciplined, but because you simply don't see the problem? The truth is, most habits don't scream for attention. They whisper, quietly, repeatedly, in the background. That's why the first step to change is not effort, it's awareness. You cannot change what you do not notice. And most people, they don't notice. They don't notice that they check their phones first thing in the morning, not because they want to, but because the phone is there. They don't realize that they snack not out of hunger, but because they saw a wrapper. That they didn't plan to binge watch a series, but the TV remote was already in their hand. Visibility governs behavior. This is why we must turn on the lights. Let's begin with a concept so simple it's often overlooked. Environment design. Your surroundings are shaping you every second. They cue your behaviors without asking your permission. The layout of your kitchen, the position of your devices, the presence or absence of a notebook, a yoga mat, a glass of water. These are not neutral. They are instructions. Consider this. The average person opens the fridge dozens of times a week. If the first thing they see is soda or leftover cake, what do you think happens? Now imagine the first thing in view is cut fruit, a bottle of cold water, or prepped vegetables. You've already made the decision easier before it even reaches your conscious mind. This is cue priming. You're not forcing discipline. You're creating alignment. Design beats willpower. Let's go deeper. Think of your home. Is your guitar stored in its case or visible in the living room? Are your vitamins tucked away or sitting near your morning coffee? Is your journal closed on a shelf or open beside your pillow? One of the most effective ways to build better habits is to make the cue obvious. What you see guides what you do. Take the example of Anna, a graphic designer who wanted to stretch every morning. She tried setting alarms, downloading apps, even leaving post-it notes, but nothing stuck. Then she rolled out her yoga mat the night before, right next to her bathroom door. The next morning, she saw it. No thinking required. She stepped on it. That visual cue did what no notification could. It invited the habit instead of demanding it. Environment design works because it removes friction. You no longer rely on memory or motivation. You walk into a space and that space cues the identity you're trying to build. Let's extend this to digital spaces. If your phone's home screen is filled with social media apps, guess where your thumb will drift? But if you move those apps into folders and place a reading app or your task list front and center, you've just shifted the cue. Again, not with effort, but with design. We live in a world of cues. A messy kitchen invites chaos. A cluttered desk invites distraction. But a tidy workspace? It whispers, let's get to work. This isn't about minimalism. It's about intentionality. Because whether you realize it or not, every space you inhabit is telling you who to be. Want to drink more water? Place a full glass on your desk before bed. Want to meditate? Set your cushion in a place you can't ignore. Want to write every night? Leave your journal on top of your pillow so you must move it before sleep. Simple, inevitable, effective. This is why habit change doesn't begin with you. It begins with your environment. Let's talk about habit stacking again. This time more tactically. Instead of thinking, I need to create time for this habit, shift to, where in my existing routine does this habit already belong? You're not building from scratch. You're upgrading the software already running. Examples. After I brew coffee, I'll review my top 3 goals. After I brush my teeth, I'll do 1 minute of breathing. After I take off my shoes, I'll do 5 squats. These new behaviors don't require a calendar. They require anchors. The more deeply rooted your anchor, the more automatic your new habit becomes. It's not about cramming more into your day. It's about weaving better actions into the fabric that's already there. And here's the twist. Your habits, once stacked, start to chain together. Like dominoes, one behavior triggers the next. That's how morning routines are born. That's how nightly rituals become calming. That's how discipline becomes rhythm. The goal isn't rigidity, it's fluidity with structure. A life that flows toward your values, not away from them. But what about bad cues? Don't just create good ones. Remove the bad. If you want to watch less TV, unplug it after every use. Put the remote in a drawer. Want to eat less junk? Don't just avoid buying it. Move it out of view or make it inconvenient to access. Out of sight truly is out of mind. A 2012 Cornell study showed that people who kept soft drinks visible in their kitchens weighed on average 25 pounds more than those who didn't. Visibility shapes behavior more than intention ever will. You're not weak, you're just surrounded. Change the surroundings. Your brain evolved to take shortcuts, and the easiest shortcut is visual. What you see, you do. So give your brain better instructions. You don't need more motivation. You need better placement, better cues, better layout, better default. That's what make it obvious really means. It's not just a mental trick. It's a spatial strategy. You're not rewiring willpower. You're rearranging the stage on which your life plays out, and the performance will follow the set. Now imagine walking into your home, and every space quietly supports who you want to become. That's not fantasy. That's design. So let's end this section with a question. What's the first thing you see when you wake up? Because that first cue is shaping who you are. And as we move forward, we'll explore how to make those cues not just visible, but irresistible. What makes one habit feel irresistible while another feels like a chore? Why do we naturally reach for some behaviors again and again, while struggling to stick to others even if we want to? The answer lies not in logic, but in emotion. Specifically in dopamine, your brain's internal anticipation system. Let's be clear, dopamine isn't about pleasure. It's about desire. It's what drives you to act before a reward even arrives. The craving comes first, the behavior follows, and the pleasure? That's just a confirmation signal. If a cue triggers enough dopamine, consciously or subconsciously, you move. You check your phone when you see a notification, not because it's urgent, but because your brain has learned to expect something. That something may be small, a like, a message, a little hit of novelty, but your brain doesn't care about size. It cares about predictability. This is why building good habits requires more than logic. It requires emotional association. If something feels boring, heavy, or punishing, your brain won't return to it. But if it feels rewarding before it begins, it becomes magnetic. Let's take something simple. Flossing. Most people know they should do it. but it doesn't feel satisfying in the moment. There's no dopamine trigger. But what if you reframed it? What if flossing meant more than oral hygiene? What if it meant, I'm someone who follows through on details? What if you paired it with a sense of accomplishment, a whispered affirmation, or even a silly song? Now it carries emotional weight. Now it's more than flossing. Or take exercise. If working out is associated with pain, exhaustion, or shame, your brain will avoid it, no matter your goals. But reframe the narrative. Exercise becomes freedom, strength, confidence. It becomes the feeling after, not the grind during. Add uplifting music, a training partner you enjoy, or the mental image of how you'll feel walking out of the gym, not in it. That reframing, that's dopamine anticipation. And now your brain begins to crave the act, not just endure it. This is the heart of habit design. Make it attractive. You do this in two ways: reframing and temptation bundling. Reframing is about rewriting the story in your head. It's the difference between I have to do this and I get to do this. That subtle shift has profound neurological consequences. Instead of, I have to eat healthy, say, I choose food that energizes me. Instead of, I have to write today, say, I'm crafting ideas that matter. This isn't fluffy self-talk. It's neurological conditioning. Because what you tell yourself shapes what you believe, and belief is the fuel of action. Then there's temptation bundling. A brilliant way to pair what you want with what you should. It works like this. Only listen to your favorite podcast while working out. Only watch your guilty pleasure show while doing laundry. Only drink your favorite latte while journaling. Now your brain begins to link the new habit to pleasure. It no longer feels like a tax. It feels like a treat. Let's look at a real-world example. Emily wanted to build a habit of reading non-fiction books, but she always ended up scrolling instead. She tried setting timers, deleting apps, making checklists. None of it stuck. Then she flipped the game. She bought herself a special blanket, a cozy lamp, and a chair she only sat in when reading. She allowed herself her favorite tea, but only during those sessions. Soon, reading wasn't an obligation. It was an indulgence. Her brain began to crave the environment. The habit followed. This works because the brain is always asking one question: what's in it for me? If the answer is discipline, it resists. If the answer is delight, it returns. Another key factor? Social belonging. We are tribal creatures. We adopt behaviors not because they're right, but because they're normal in our group. Spend time with people who wake early, journal daily, and train their minds, and suddenly those things become default, not exceptional. Your identity begins to sync with the environment. This is the silent magnetism of culture. Want to change your habits? Change your culture. Want to run? Join a running club. Want to create? Follow creators. Want to grow? Spend time with those who stretch you. Even passive exposure shifts norms. Seeing a friend post about morning meditation might be the spark that changes your day. Why? Because it reminds you, people like me do things like this. This is called cultural reinforcement. That's why the most successful habit systems aren't just built on rewards. They're built on identity signals. You begin to see yourself differently, not just as someone doing a new habit, but as someone who belongs to a group where that habit is common. And you don't need to abandon your friends. Just diversify your influences. Let your brain see a new model of what's normal. Then let that normal reshape your behaviors. This combination, emotional reframing, temptation bundling, and social alignment, is the trifecta of attraction. Don't make your habits harder through gritted teeth. Make them easier through emotional gravity. Now ask yourself, how can you make your next habit more desirable? What can you pair it with, reframe it into, or surround it by? so your brain leans in instead of pushing away. Because in the end, a habit isn't about what you must do. It's about what you can't wait to return to. In the next section, we'll see how to make that return effortless, not just attractive, by removing every friction point that gets in your way. Think about the last time you planned to do something good for yourself. Go for a run, start that project, cook a healthy meal. Now think about why you didn't do it. Was it because you didn't care enough? Didn't want the benefits? Probably not. More likely, the answer is much simpler. It was just a little too hard to start. Here's the hidden truth behind most failed habits. Friction. The more effort required to start a behavior, the less likely you are to follow through. This isn't laziness. It's physics. In nature, energy follows the path of least resistance. So does behavior. If your guitar is in its case, under the bed, behind a box of winter coats, you're not going to play it. If your workout clothes are somewhere in the laundry, your morning run probably won't happen. But if the guitar is on a stand in your living room, if the clothes are folded by the door, suddenly the behavior feels frictionless. This is the law of least effort. Your brain is constantly evaluating. What's the easiest way to feel better right now? It's not choosing the best option. It's choosing the least annoying one. So if scrolling is easier than stretching, you'll scroll. If watching is easier than writing, you'll watch. Even if it betrays your values. This is not a flaw, it's a feature. And if you want to outsmart it, you don't need more willpower. You need less resistance. Let's look at environmental optimization. Take Carl. He wanted to journal at night, but his journal was on a shelf. His pen was somewhere else. And by the time he brushed his teeth, the couch was more inviting than the desk. So, we changed one thing. He placed his journal on his pillow. Now he had to pick it up before sleeping. He didn't even need to remind himself anymore. It was just there. No resistance, no delay, no choice. That's friction removal in action. You can do this in reverse too. Add strategic friction to bad habits. Want to watch less TV? Unplug it after each use. Move the remote to a different room. Want to scroll less? Log out after each session. Move your phone charger to another floor. These extra steps won't stop you, but they slow you down. And in that delay lives a moment of decision. Sometimes that's all you need. But the greatest hack of all might be the 2-minute rule. It goes like this. Any habit you want to build should take less than 2 minutes to start. Not finish, start. Want to read more? Read 1 page. Want to run? Put on your shoes. Want to write? Open the notebook and write a sentence. Want to declutter? Clean 1 drawer. The point is not productivity, it's initiation. Action creates momentum. And once you're in motion, it's easier to continue. It's physics again. Objects in motion stay in motion. What makes this so powerful is that it bypasses the resistance your brain puts up when it anticipates a large demand. Starting a habit often feels like pushing a boulder, but starting a tiny habit feels like rolling a pebble. And once you roll the pebble, you're moving. Let's see how this worked for Jason, an overwhelmed law student who wanted to build a daily study habit. He committed to opening his textbook and reading just 1 sentence each day. That was it. No time limit. No guilt. Most days, he ended up reading for 20 minutes. But even on hard days, he kept the promise to open the book. The streak remained unbroken. That's how identity forms. Not from maximum effort, but from reliable repetition. Remember, small doesn't mean insignificant. Small means sustainable. When you shrink the habit to 2 minutes, you eliminate the excuses. You lower the barrier to 0. And with repetition, Even these micro-behaviors gain weight. They grow into rituals. They evolve into routines. They start to define you. The goal isn't perfection, it's redundancy. Make the habit so easy to start. You can do it without thinking, even on your worst day. And that leads us to automation. Once a habit becomes automatic, you no longer rely on discipline. It becomes your default behavior. You just do it. Automation can be designed through 3 main strategies. Environmental cues. Place objects in visible locations tied to your desired habit. Time blocking. Assign the habit to a fixed time slot, e.g., every day at 7 a.m. Systems. Use tools that support automatic action. Meal prep, task templates, app reminders. The more automated a behavior, the less mental energy it consumes, which frees you to focus on other things that actually do require thought. Imagine if brushing your teeth every night required motivation, negotiation, and a checklist. Exhausting, right? But it doesn't. It's automatic. That's where you want your most powerful habits to live. Not in a place of constant negotiation, but in unconscious execution. If you want to build a writing habit, don't wait for inspiration. Write at 8 a.m. every day, even if you only write 1 paragraph. That repetition becomes automation. And finally, don't forget prep beats passion. If your fridge is filled with pre-chopped vegetables, eating healthy is easier than ordering takeout. If your to-do list is ready the night before, waking up with clarity is natural. These are the hidden moves that separate consistent people from inconsistent ones. Not passion, not genetics, not luck. It's prep, systems, simplicity. So here's your challenge. What habit have you been thinking about but not starting? Now shrink it. Make the first 2 minutes frictionless. Lay out the mat, open the dock, put the shoes by the door, then repeat, and repeat again. Eventually, the boulder will move itself. And once a habit is easy to begin, we'll look at how to anchor it in your brain with satisfaction. Because without reward, repetition dies. There's a reason your brain keeps chasing the things that feel good. Reward matters. In fact, it's everything. We tend to believe that discipline is what keeps habits alive. But in reality, it's satisfaction. If a habit doesn't feel good, now, not someday, it won't stick. No matter how logical, healthy, or aspirational it may be. Here's the catch. Our brains are wired for immediacy, not long-term benefit. Thousands of years ago, humans didn't delay rewards. They hunted and ate, found shelter and rested. Immediate gratification meant survival. Fast forward to now, and that same system is still running. But the rewards we need, better health, financial security, long-term fulfillment, are often delayed. This creates a problem. We're trying to form habits with long-term benefits using a brain that demands short-term pleasure. So, what do? We engineer satisfaction into the habit loop. Let's start with the basics. When your brain associates a behavior with a positive feeling, it wants to do it again. This is the principle of reinforcement. It's why checking boxes feels good, why streaks matter, why the tiniest "yes, I did it" becomes fuel. If you finish a workout and immediately feel depleted and miserable, your brain tags that experience as something to avoid. But if you finish and stretch with relaxing music, sip a cool drink, and enjoy that wave of clarity, reward registered. Repeat desired. Let's take a practical example. Anna wanted to build a habit of going for daily walks, but every time she returned, she felt behind on work, rushed, and slightly guilty. No dopamine spike, no sense of win. So she changed just one thing. After each walk, she sat in silence for 2 minutes on her porch. No phone, just the air. That pause became the reward. Her brain started linking walking to peace, not pressure. Within weeks, the walks became non-negotiable. This is what you need to build: positive emotional closure. Reward doesn't have to be grand. It can be subtle. A moment of gratitude, a small smile, checking off a habit tracker, watching a dot fill in on a streak app. These micro rewards tell your brain, this matters. Over time, they strengthen the neural pathways that support habit continuation. Consider the act of marking an X on a calendar after completing a habit. It seems trivial. But those X's form a streak, and once the streak exists, you don't want to break it. The visual becomes part of your identity. I'm someone who keeps going, and that streak, that's satisfaction made visible. This is why habit tracking is such a powerful tool. It creates a feedback loop. The act of tracking becomes part of the reward. It transforms the invisible effort into a visible victory. Here are a few ways to track: a wall calendar with red X's, a bullet journal habit log, a digital app that tracks streaks or sends gentle reminders, a simple checklist on your fridge. The method doesn't matter. The meaning does. Tracking helps you remember that the work you're doing counts. It creates proof. Proof you're showing up. Proof you're becoming someone new. When you feel like you're making no progress, the tracker says otherwise. It says, you're building something. Keep going. Now let's add another layer: rituals. A ritual is a structured sequence that gives emotional meaning to a behavior. It transforms a habit from mechanical to sacred. It adds intention. It marks transition. Think of an athlete who ties their shoes the same way before every game, or a writer who lights a candle before beginning their work. These rituals don't cause the behavior, but they anchor it. They make the habit feel official. Want to build a journaling habit? Don't just open the notebook. Pour a cup of tea. Light a lamp. Sit in a specific spot. These actions tell your brain, it's time. And they also make it feel good. Want to create an evening wind down? Dim the lights. Play instrumental music. Turn off notifications. These actions prime your nervous system for rest, and your brain learns. This is safe. This is comfort. This is reward. Rituals also protect you from autopilot. They force presence, and presence is satisfaction. Don't overlook the power of emotional rewards either. Acknowledge yourself. Not with arrogance, but with affirmation. I'm proud I showed up today. This choice reflects who I want to become. I kept a promise to myself. Say it, feel it, own it. It may sound small, but emotional reinforcement builds resilience. When a habit is tied to a feeling of pride, alignment, or self-respect, it takes root deeper than logic ever could. Another powerful layer: social reward. Share your streak with a friend. Celebrate with your partner. Post your progress if that fuels you. Accountability becomes reward when it leads to encouragement. When others see your effort and affirm it, your brain lights up. But beware, this must be supportive, not performative. Share because it reinforces your identity, not to chase approval. Let's revisit a familiar truth. What gets rewarded, gets repeated. This doesn't mean you need a trophy or a treat after every habit. It means you need a signal, internal or external, that says, you did something good. Let's do it again. Because if the behavior feels satisfying, your brain will want to return. So now ask yourself, what immediate reward can I build into this habit? How can I track my progress in a way that feels fun? What ritual can I create that makes this habit feel meaningful? Don't rely on willpower alone. Rely on wiring. Make your brain fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. And when reward becomes routine, we'll begin to look at the next challenge: breaking the loops that no longer serve you. Some habits build you up, others quietly break you down. The dangerous part? They both feel the same at first. Every habit exists for a reason, even the ones you wish you didn't have. That late-night scroll, that second drink, that sarcastic reply, they're not random. They're responses to a deeper need: comfort, escape, stimulation, control. In a sense, bad habits are just inefficient solutions to real problems, which is why breaking them isn't about brute force. It's about understanding the architecture and then carefully removing the supports. Let's begin with the cue. Bad habits always have a trigger. Maybe it's a time of day. Maybe it's a location. Maybe it's boredom. Maybe it's loneliness. The hard part? These triggers often operate below conscious awareness. You're on the couch before you realize you've opened the chips. You've already clicked into the app before you remember you swore not to. That's why the first step in breaking a bad habit is making the cue visible. Write down the habit you want to change. Then ask, when does it happen? Where does it happen? What emotion do I usually feel right before? Who else is around? What's the first thing that happens before it? This isn't overthinking, it's uncovering the script. For example, maybe every time you feel anxious at work, you open a shopping site. Or every time you're lonely at night, you open dating apps. The trigger isn't the site, it's the emotion. The site is just your current response. Once you see the pattern, you have power. Because now, you can rewrite the loop. Let's walk through this using a habit loop inversion. Cue, make it invisible. Craving, make it unattractive. Response, make it difficult. Reward, make it unsatisfying. Take the habit of late-night junk food. Start by removing visibility. Don't keep snacks on the counter. Move them to the back of a high cabinet. Better yet, don't bring them home. The less often your brain sees the cue, the less often it will crave the reward. Next, tackle the craving. Most bad habits persist because they offer something desirable in the short term, even if they damage you long term. To weaken the craving, reframe the cost. Think vividly about how you feel after the habit, not just physically, but emotionally. That bloated feeling, the guilt, the disappointment, the morning after regret. Now bring those feelings to the surface before the habit kicks in. Visualize the consequence. Make it immediate. Make it real. That's how you make the craving unattractive. Next, attack the response. Make the behavior harder. Add friction. If junk food is a problem, don't just move it. Store it in opaque containers. Or require a step like asking a friend for permission. Or donate money to a cause you disagree with if you break the rule. This is called a commitment device, and it forces a pause. Sometimes, a pause is enough. Finally, address the reward. This is the hardest part, because most bad habits offer an emotional payoff, even if it's a poor substitute. So your job isn't just to remove the bad reward, it's to replace it. This is the golden rule of breaking habits. Don't remove, replace. You can't eliminate a need, but you can choose a better way to meet it. Take Mark, a teacher who struggled with procrastination. His bad loop was triggered by overwhelm. Whenever his to-do list got long, he'd numb out with video games. The games didn't solve the overwhelm, but they gave him temporary escape. Instead of trying to quit gaming cold turkey, he replaced the response. He built a new loop. Cue, feeling overwhelmed. Craving, relief. New response, 10 minutes of walking or breathing. Reward, reduced pressure, mental clarity. The need didn't change, but the solution did. This is habit substitution. But remember, the new behavior must be just as accessible as the old one. Don't expect yourself to meditate for 30 minutes if your bad habit was scrolling for 5. Match the scale. then slowly evolve the habit over time. Now let's talk about making bad habits socially costly. We're wired to care what others think. So use that. Declare your habit publicly. Ask a friend to check in. Create consequences for breaking the chain. Not out of shame, but out of honor. You're building accountability into the system. Even better? Make it fun. Bet a friend $10 for every missed day. Or agree to do something embarrassing if you don't follow through. The emotional jolt can be enough to disrupt the loop. But beyond tactics, here's the deeper truth. Your bad habits were once survival strategies. They helped you cope. They helped you belong. They helped you get through something. Respect that. Don't shame them. Don't shame yourself. Just acknowledge. This strategy no longer serves who I'm becoming. And then, gently, consistently, choose better ones. The goal isn't perfection. It's progress with awareness. Not, I'll never do that again, but I understand why I did that. And I'll choose differently next time. Because the moment you bring light to a habit, you weaken its grip. So as we move ahead, consider this. Which habit is quietly stealing your momentum? And what better version of that habit can you create in its place? Because breaking habits isn't about losing control. It's about reclaiming it. In the next section, we'll go one step deeper. Not just breaking bad habits, but building systems that make good ones inevitable. Change doesn't happen when you finally feel motivated. It happens when you build a system that makes success inevitable. Too often we think in terms of goals. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to write a book. I want to be more focused. But a goal is just a destination. It says where you're going, not how you'll get there. That's the job of a system. A system is the collection of daily habits, routines, and structures that carry you forward, especially when motivation fades. And it will fade. Let's imagine two people. Both want to run a marathon. One writes it on their calendar, buys new shoes, and tells their friends. The other designs a system, runs every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, lays out their gear the night before, joins a local running group, tracks each run in a journal. They're not relying on emotion. They're relying on architecture. Guess who gets there? Systems beat goals every time. Because systems are repeatable. They create momentum. They make action the default, not the exception. That's why the most successful people don't set more goals. They build better systems. Let's break it down into 3 components. 1. Routines. These are your recurring actions. Morning rituals, evening wind downs, midday resets. The more automated your routines, the less energy you waste deciding what to do. Think of routines as your behavioral anchor points. They keep you grounded. They shrink the space for decision fatigue. If you start every workday by reviewing your top 3 priorities, you eliminate the chaos of guesswork. If you end every night by preparing your clothes and planner for tomorrow, you remove resistance from the morning. Small acts, massive clarity. 2. Habit ecosystems. This is where the magic compounds. A habit ecosystem is when multiple small behaviors support one another in a loop. Take someone trying to improve sleep. They don't just go to bed earlier. They dim the lights at 9 p.m., put their phone in another room, brew chamomile tea, read for 10 minutes, journal 1, gratitude. Each habit reinforces the next. No one action carries the load. Together, they build a rhythm that supports the goal. And rhythm is more powerful than intensity. When habits form ecosystems, consistency becomes natural, not forced. 3. Feedback loops. A system without feedback is a car with no dashboard. You don't know how fast you're going. You don't know if you're off track. That's why weekly or monthly check-ins matter. Track your habits. Reflect. Ask, what's working? What feels heavy? What did I miss and why? Not to judge, to adjust. Let's look at Mia, a new entrepreneur. She struggled with motivation. Every week felt different, some productive, others scattered. She built a simple system. Every Sunday night, she reviewed her week. She looked at her calendar, her energy levels, her habits. No emotion, just data. Within a month, she saw patterns. Mondays were her focus days. Fridays needed recovery. She started planning accordingly. This is system design in action. Observe, adapt, refine. It's not about building the perfect plan. It's about building the plan that evolves with you. Now, a key mindset shift. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. This is why motivation is overrated. Motivation is a spark. Systems are the fuel. Motivation comes and goes. Systems keep going. If you only meditate when you feel like it, you'll meditate once a month. If you meditate after brushing your teeth every night, it becomes a part of your identity, not just a mood. Your system is your safety net. Even on bad days, it holds you. Even when life gets messy, it whispers, "Here's what we do next." But building a system isn't about complexity. It's about predictability. Simple beats sophisticated, always. So start with one anchor habit in the morning, one reset habit during the day, one wind-down ritual at night. That's your base. Then ask, what behaviors make other behaviors easier? For instance, prepping lunch on Sundays makes eating healthy easier all week. Or reviewing your calendar at night makes focused work easier in the morning. These upstream habits unlock downstream ease. They're what James Clear calls high-leverage habits, a small input that creates a cascade of results. And finally, embed your system into your environment. If your system requires perfect willpower, it will break. But if your system lives in your space, your setup, your reminders, your surroundings, it will run itself. Place your tools where you need them. Schedule your time blocks like appointments. Use visual cues to guide your behavior. Let your environment become a silent coach. Because in a well-designed system, success feels obvious. Failure feels like friction. So as we move forward, shift your focus. Stop asking, "What's my goal?" Start asking, "What system will get me there?" Even on my worst day. Because when the system is in place, discipline feels lighter. And when discipline feels lighter, consistency becomes who you are. And next, we'll explore what happens when you let go of inspiration altogether and trust only in your ability to keep showing up, no matter how you feel. Let's set the record straight. Motivation is unreliable. You might wake up energized one day and depleted the next. You might feel inspired after watching a video or reading a book, but hours later, that spark fades. Relying on motivation to build your habits is like trying to sail by catching lightning in a bottle. Real change doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from something quieter, tougher, and infinitely more dependable: discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It's not rigid, joyless effort. It's simply this: doing what matters, especially when you don't feel like it. Let's consider Sarah. She wanted to get back into running. At first, she waited until she felt ready, until the weather was nice, until she had the right playlist. But weeks passed, and she hadn't run once. Then she flipped her approach. She made a rule: run every morning at 6:30 a.m., rain or shine, even if only for 5 minutes. At first, it was hard, but after a few days, she stopped negotiating. She just ran. The motivation came later, after she laced her shoes, not before. That's discipline in motion. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. And structure is what carries you when emotions fail. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wake up needing a TED Talk to do it. You just do it. Because it's non-negotiable. That's the level your most important habits should reach. This is where systems merge with identity. When a habit is tied to your sense of self, not your mood, you act even when it's inconvenient. A writer doesn't ask, "Do I feel like writing today?" They sit and write even if just one paragraph. A healthy eater doesn't question every meal. They make aligned choices automatically. Discipline isn't about being superhuman. It's about removing the option to opt out. Now here's a secret. Discipline builds its own momentum. It starts with small wins. A single push-up, 5 minutes of stretching, 1 chapter read. These wins compound. And with each repetition, your self-trust grows. You stop asking, "Can I do this?" and start saying, "Of course I do this." Discipline is a muscle. The more you train it, the easier it gets. Let's look at one of the greatest athletes in history, Kobe Bryant. He didn't rise to greatness by waiting for motivation. He built a ritual of relentless consistency. 4 a.m. workouts, thousands of free throws, obsessive attention to detail. Was he always excited? No. But he had a standard. Discipline was his floor, not his ceiling. You don't need to be Kobe, but you do need a floor, a minimum standard you uphold daily, no matter what. This is where the no 0 days philosophy shines. The rule is simple. No day without progress, even if tiny. 1 sentence written, 1 set completed, 1 mindful breath. The size doesn't matter. The streak does. Each day you show up, you reinforce identity. I am someone who honors their commitments. And here's the paradox. The less you depend on motivation, the more motivation you'll feel. Because progress is energizing. Momentum is satisfying. You'll start to crave the action that once felt hard. But it starts with one thing: removing the debate. You don't debate brushing your teeth. You don't debate whether to get dressed. Make your key habits just as automatic. How? Through pre-commitment. Set your intentions ahead of time. Decide when, where, and how long you'll do the thing. Put it in your calendar. Tell a friend. Lay out the materials. Make it hard to not follow through. This is why elite performers don't wing it. They have systems, routines, non-negotiables. And yes, they still feel tired, discouraged, distracted. But their structure saves them, because discipline isn't about feeling right. It's about doing the next right thing. Now let's talk about setbacks. Even disciplined people miss a day. The difference? They never miss 2. That's the 2-day rule. 1 slip is human. 2 in a row is a new habit. So your job isn't perfection, it's recovery. You don't need to stay perfect. You need to stay on the path, and you stay on the path by building self-respect, by keeping your promises to yourself. Every small action is a vote. Every missed action is a moment to respond, not with shame, but with recommitment. Discipline is showing up without drama, no theatrics, no waiting for lightning to strike, just movement, small, steady, relentless. So as we move forward, don't ask how to stay motivated. Ask how to stay consistent when motivation is gone. Because when you rely on discipline, not moods, you become unshakable. And that consistency? It's the raw material from which mastery is made. In the next section, we'll explore how to measure that consistency. Not through feelings, but through tangible systems of tracking, accountability, and habit contracts that keep you on course even when the path gets blurry. You've heard it before. What gets measured gets managed. But when it comes to habits, what gets tracked gets repeated. Because progress you can see, that's progress you believe in, and belief fuels action. Let's get this clear. You don't need a perfect streak. You need proof that you're moving forward, even if it's 1 step at a time. That proof comes from tracking. Tracking a habit does 3 powerful things. It gives visibility to effort. It builds momentum. It creates accountability. Let's begin with visibility. Most habit change dies in the shadows. Not because people fail, but because they forget they're succeeding. You work out 3 days in a row, then miss 1, and suddenly it feels like you've lost all progress. But if you had a log showing your wins, you'd see the truth. you'd stay on track. This is where something as simple as a check mark on a calendar changes everything. James Clear popularized the concept with his "don't break the chain" method. Every day you complete a habit, you mark an X. The streak becomes your motivation. The visual becomes your identity. You're not just trying, you're building. Take Natalie. She wanted to start journaling again, but the habit kept slipping through her fingers. So she created a ritual. Each night, after journaling, she marked her paper calendar with a gold star. Childlike? Maybe. But after 2 weeks, that streak mattered more than the words. She didn't want to break the chain. The habit became real. That's the power of visual feedback. It taps into something deep and primal. We love to complete. Now let's talk about momentum. Every tracked habit becomes a small win. Each check mark is a reminder. You did what you said you would do. That builds trust. And trust builds consistency. Even better, when you see your consistency, your brain links the habit to identity. You're not just someone who goes for walks. You're someone who never misses 2 days in a row. That distinction is powerful. It makes showing up less about discipline and more about self-respect. And that leads us to accountability. Because tracking is not just private, it can also be social. When you share your progress with others, you create an external feedback loop. Not for praise, but for presence. Someone else knows. Someone else sees. That awareness keeps you anchored, especially when your own motivation wavers. Accountability can be simple. A friend you text daily with your streak. A group chat where you log your wins. A shared habit tracker. A coach, partner, or mentor who checks in weekly. But there's an even stronger tool. Habit contracts. A habit contract is a written agreement between you and yourself, or you and someone else, that formalizes your commitment. It states what you'll do, how often, what happens if you miss. It adds weight to your promises. Here's how it works. Write down the habit. Define the frequency. Choose a consequence for breaking it. Have someone sign it with you, or just witness it. Example: I will go to the gym 3 times per week. If I miss more than 1 session in a week, I will donate $50 to a cause I disagree with. Signed, me plus my accountability partner. The consequence doesn't have to be extreme. It just has to matter to you. And the beauty of a contract is that it shifts your mindset. This isn't a wish. It's a commitment. It's no longer, "I hope to." It becomes, "I've promised to." That shift is subtle but massive. Because now, breaking your habit isn't just about skipping an action. It's about breaking your word. That's not guilt. That's gravity. And when you respect your word, you move differently. Let's talk about tracking with quality in mind, not just quantity. Say you're building a habit of exercising. It's easy to track. Did I work out today? Yes or no? But also ask, how did I feel during? After? Did I improve? This depth of reflection strengthens the habit loop. It connects the behavior to a sense of meaning. Don't just track the action, track the impact. Over time, this builds emotional reinforcement. You don't just know what you did, you remember why you did it. That's how the habit sticks. If journaling helps your mental clarity, write that down. If stretching reduces your back pain, note it. If gratitude boosts your mood, reflect on it. These micro insights accumulate. They form a habit narrative, a personal story of how your life changes because you keep showing up. Now, what happens when you break the streak? Because you will. The rule here is simple. Never miss twice. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the beginning of a new habit, one you don't want. So when you slip, and you will, don't spiral. Recommit. A missed day doesn't erase the progress. It simply invites a stronger return. This is why tracking and accountability matter most when things go wrong. Because when motivation is gone and discipline feels thin, your systems catch you. The calendar says, "You've done this before." The contract says, "You said you would." Your friend says, "I'm here if you need help." This is how consistency becomes sustainable. It's not built on streaks. It's built on reconnection. Tracking reminds you of your path. Accountability reminds you that you're not alone. Contracts remind you that your promises matter. Together, they form a safety net. And next, we'll explore what happens when you fall. Not just once, but for a while. How to recover, rebuild, reset. Because the real magic isn't in never stumbling. It's in knowing exactly how to stand up when you do. At some point, you'll get bored. The routine will feel stale. The excitement will wear off. Progress will slow down, or worse, seem invisible. And when that happens, your mind will whisper the old familiar lie. This isn't working. Maybe you're just not cut out for this. This is the plateau. It's the place where most habits go to die. Not because they weren't working, but because the results weren't dramatic enough, fast enough. And so we assume something's wrong, when in fact, the system is working exactly as it should. The problem isn't the plateau, it's our expectation of constant visible progress. But here's the truth. Habits don't work like fireworks. They work like tectonic plates. Quiet, consistent, powerful. They shift the ground beneath you before you even realize it. Let's use a visual. Imagine an ice cube sitting on a table in a cold room. The room is 25 degrees. You start warming it, 26 degrees, 27 degrees, 28 degrees, but nothing seems to change. Still frozen. Then comes 31 degrees, 32 degrees, and suddenly the ice begins to melt. Was it that one final degree that did it? No. It was the accumulation of heat. The plateau was never a dead zone. It was preparation. This is how real transformation happens. You don't feel the change until you suddenly become the change. But to reach that breakthrough, you must learn to stay consistent during the boring middle. This requires a shift in how you think about progress. From "is it working?" to "am I working the process?" From outcome obsession to system loyalty. Let's talk about boredom. Boredom is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is becoming automatic. And automatic is good. It means the habit is embedding itself in your subconscious. The key is learning to push through the boredom without adding drama. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs wait for the mood. If you only act when inspired, your progress will be inconsistent. But if you act on principle, you build momentum. And momentum is what carries you through dry spells. That doesn't mean you should white-knuckle your way through monotony. You can keep things fresh within the framework. Try changing your environment. Work from a different space, varying your format. Switch from writing on a laptop to handwriting. Adjusting your tempo. Work in short sprints instead of long blocks. These changes preserve the habit while refreshing your experience. Now let's talk about challenge. To stay engaged, a habit needs to live in the Goldilocks zone. Not too easy, not too hard, just enough to stretch you. Too easy? You disengage. Too hard? You burn out. Just right? You stay curious, alert, motivated. This is why progress should be incremental, not exponential. If you're working out, don't add 30 pounds overnight. Add 5. If you're writing, don't jump from a paragraph to a novel. Add a sentence a day. The goal is to stay in flow, challenged but not crushed. Take language learning. At first, new words feel exciting, but then the plateau hits. You feel stuck between beginner and fluent. The temptation is to quit. But those who become fluent are not the ones who learn the fastest. They're the ones who kept going through the boring middle. Mastery isn't about talent. It's about repetition that outlives resistance. This is also why you need to evolve your habits as you grow. What worked at the beginning might not serve you later. Maybe your morning routine needs tweaking. Maybe your workout needs more variety. Maybe your journaling needs deeper prompts. Evolve the habit without abandoning the principle. Think of your habits as software. You release version 1.0, then update to 1.1, then 2.0. You don't throw away the app. You upgrade it. Here's the key. Don't mistake adaptation for inconsistency. It's not flip-flopping, it's intelligent refinement. Now let's talk about a powerful skill: learning from friction. When a habit starts to feel heavy, don't quit. Study it. Ask, what part feels heavy? What's missing? What no longer excites me? Where am I resisting? Then re-engineer the loop. Maybe your reward is too delayed. Maybe your cue is too weak. Maybe the craving is no longer compelling. Each habit has a structure, and every structure can be improved. And finally, give yourself permission to reset. Sometimes we hold on to old habits because we fear losing our progress. But letting go is not failure, it's evolution. If a habit no longer aligns with your identity, shift it. If your goal has changed, update the system. Growth requires shedding old skins. You're not starting over. You're building from experience. Because the real enemy isn't boredom, it's disconnection. When your habits lose meaning, you lose motivation. So reconnect. Remind yourself, why did I start? Who am I becoming? How will I feel after I follow through? That reflection revives the ritual. So if you're in a plateau right now, keep showing up. You're not stuck. You're stacking. Progress is happening, quietly. And soon, something will shift. The ice will melt. The compound effect will reveal itself, but only if you stay long enough to see it. In the next section, we'll explore the power of reflection, not as a recap, but as a tool to reinforce identity, deepen understanding, and renew your connection to the path you're on. Most people think of reflection as something you do at the end, a backward glance, a summary. But in truth, reflection is fuel, a powerful tool that reinforces identity, deepens self-awareness, and reveals the hidden patterns guiding your behavior. If you want your habits to last, you have to look back, not to judge, but to understand. Let's begin with the purpose. Reflection turns experience into insight. You don't grow just by repeating an action. You grow by thinking about the action, by asking, what worked? What didn't? What will I adjust next time? This is the principle behind deliberate practice, the method elite performers use to accelerate mastery. They don't just repeat, they refine. They make small, targeted improvements based on feedback. And reflection is the feedback loop. Let's look at 3 types of reflection that help habits stick. 1. Daily micro-reflection. This is a 2 to 5 minute ritual, simple, powerful, and easy to sustain. Ask yourself each evening, what habit did I complete today? What made it easy or hard? How did I feel after doing it? What's one thing I could improve tomorrow? This isn't journaling a novel. It's a mental download, a way to track the emotional and practical experience of your habit. Over time, you'll see patterns. Maybe certain times of day work better. Maybe your energy dips after certain meals. Maybe stress derails you more than you thought. These aren't random, they're clues. Clues that let you personalize your system. 2. Weekly identity check-ins. Once a week, go deeper. Review your habits not just as actions, but as evidence of identity. Ask, what identity am I reinforcing with my habits? Do my actions align with who I want to become? Where am I out of alignment and why? These questions aren't about shame. They're about awareness, because every habit you repeat is casting a vote. If you're working out 3 times a week, you're voting for, I'm someone who respects my body. If you're reading daily, you're voting for, I'm someone who invests in my mind. If you skip your meditation 10 days in a row, it's not failure, it's data. Maybe the time isn't right. Maybe the method doesn't resonate. That's insight. And insight leads to better decisions. 3. Monthly system reviews. Once a month, zoom out. Ask, what's working effortlessly? What's starting to feel forced? What should I double down on? What should I retire or replace? These reviews prevent stagnation. They keep your system alive, evolving with you. Let's take Daniel, a designer who built a strong morning routine. At first, it energized him, but over time it became rigid. Instead of letting it die, he reflected and realized the structure wasn't the problem. It was the lack of variety. He replaced morning podcasts with music, and suddenly, the ritual felt fresh again. Reflection didn't just preserve the habit, it enhanced it. Now let's go even deeper, because reflection isn't just tactical, it's existential. Sometimes your habits are in place, but your why is gone. You're showing up, but not feeling it. That's when you revisit purpose. Ask, why did I start this? What pain was I trying to avoid? What dream was I trying to nurture? Is that still true? Because people don't quit habits. They quit meaningless ones. Reflection brings meaning back. Even more powerful, share your reflection. You don't have to be a writer or a public speaker. Just speak your insights to a friend, a mentor, a journal. When you give your experience language, it becomes real. It shifts from vague emotion to conscious awareness. And in that space, you can choose. Reflection also protects against ego drift. When habits go well, we often stop asking questions. We coast. But what works now might not work later. Life changes. Seasons shift. You shift. And if you don't reflect, you risk clinging to habits that no longer serve you, or abandoning ones that just needed an adjustment. Reflection keeps you honest. So here's a challenge. For the next 7 days, track your habit with 1 sentence a day. Once a week, answer 3 questions. What felt good? What felt off? What surprised me? Once a month, look at your identity. Does your system support who you're becoming? This isn't extra work, it's alignment work. Because when your habits reflect your truth, they don't feel like obligations. They feel like expressions. Not, I have to, but of course I do this. This is who I am. That's the power of reflection. It closes the gap between action and identity. And as you deepen that connection, you'll find that even the smallest routines begin to carry profound meaning. Next, we'll explore how to intentionally design that future identity. Not just reflect on who you are, but create who you want to become through your habits, values, and daily rituals. If every action casts a vote for the person you're becoming, then your identity isn't something you find. It's something you design. And that's one of the most powerful truths about habit change. You don't have to wait to become the future version of yourself. You can start embodying it now, one small habit at a time. Let's begin with this core idea. Identity is fluid. Who you are is not fixed. It's shaped by what you repeatedly do, think, say, and choose. And the person you wish to become? They're not out there in some distant future. They're within reach, waiting for you to act like them. The question is not, who am I today? It's, who do I want to be tomorrow? And what would that person do today? Let's build this process in 3 steps. 1. Envision the future. You don't just say, I want to be healthier or more successful. That's vague. Instead, ask, what kind of person do I want to become? What are their habits? How do they handle adversity? What choices do they make daily? Get specific. Imagine someone who lives with intentionality. They wake up early, reflect on their goals, eat nourishing meals, protect their time, move their body, speak with integrity. Each habit is a brick. Together, they form a character. Now, don't wait until some magical day to be that person. Choose one brick, place it, then another. 2. Reverse engineer your identity. Once you have the vision, reverse engineer it. Ask, if I already were this person, what would my habits look like? For example, if I were a disciplined person, what would I do when I don't feel like working out? If I were a calm person, how would I react when provoked? If I were a focused creator, how would I design my mornings? This is how you backfill identity with behavior. You act as if, and over time, the actions become reality. This isn't fake, it's formative. You're not pretending to be someone else. You're practicing being the version of yourself that aligns with your highest values. 3. Use habit architecture to reinforce it. Identity sticks when it's reinforced through repetition. So you design rituals that say, "This is who I am." Let's say you want to be someone who values growth. You might read 10 pages every morning. Write down one thing you learned each day. Reflect weekly on how your actions aligned with your goals. These habits don't just support the identity, they prove it. Over time, the line between action and identity disappears. You're no longer someone trying to be disciplined. You are disciplined, not by declaration, but by evidence. Now here's something essential. Identity needs affirmation. That means recognizing and celebrating when you show up. Say it out loud. Acknowledge it. I showed up today, even when I didn't feel like it. That's who I am. You're not inflating ego. You're reinforcing integrity. And in that reinforcement, the identity stabilizes. You become someone who trusts themselves, who believes their own promises, who sees setbacks not as identity crises, but as moments to realign. Let's take Sarah, a young mother trying to rebuild confidence after burnout. Her old identity said, "I'm someone who always quits." But she challenged it. She chose one habit: walking 15 minutes each evening. Each walk was a vote. Each check mark on the calendar, a whisper. You're not who you used to be. You're becoming. 6 months later, she wasn't just walking. She was running, reading, sleeping better, speaking up more. Why? Because her identity shifted, and the rest followed. Let's anchor this with a truth. Change doesn't happen when you believe something new. It happens when you believe something new about yourself. And the way to believe something new? Live it. If you want to be courageous, do one brave thing. If you want to be financially wise, make one mindful choice. If you want to be present, turn off your phone and listen with full attention. Then do it again and again. Identity isn't found, it's forged. And it's forged in the small, invisible moments no one sees. This is why the process matters more than the outcome. A goal is a result, but identity is a lifestyle. You may not be able to control every result, but you can control your votes. Every intentional habit is a ballot cast for your future self. So ask, what does my vote say today? And if it doesn't align, adjust. Not with shame, with strategy. And let the shift be gentle. Let it be graceful. Because the strongest identities are not the loudest. They're the most consistent. In the next section, we'll explore how to design your environment so it quietly reinforces this identity, making your new behaviors feel natural, automatic, and even inevitable. We like to think that our choices are driven by willpower, intention, and rational thought. But in truth, much of our behavior is shaped not by what's inside us, but by what's around us. Your environment is a silent force, subtle, constant, and profoundly influential. If you want to make good habits easy and bad habits hard, you don't need more motivation. You need better design. Let's begin with a core truth. Environment is the invisible hand that guides behavior. You don't eat the cookie just because you're weak. You eat it because it's on the counter within reach, perfectly lit in that warm kitchen glow. You don't pick up your phone because you need to. You pick it up because it's buzzing beside your laptop, begging for attention. The problem isn't your discipline, it's your defaults. So here's the strategy. Make your environment work for you, not against you. 1. Make good habits obvious. We gravitate toward what's visible and accessible. So if you want to make a habit easier, Put cues in your line of sight. Want to drink more water? Keep a bottle on your desk. Want to read more? Place the book on your pillow. Want to journal? Lay the notebook open next to your coffee mug. Visual cues reduce the need for internal prompts. The object reminds you. Even better? Create environmental rituals. Light a candle before writing. Use a specific lamp for evening reflection. Over time, your brain will associate spaces and objects with behaviors. This is called contextual priming. You're telling your nervous system, this is what we do here. 2. Make bad habits invisible. Just as the presence of good cues helps, the removal of bad ones is just as powerful. Delete the apps that hijack your focus. Unplug the TV and put the remote in a drawer. Move the snack stash to a hard-to-reach cabinet. This isn't about deprivation, it's about reducing friction. Because friction matters, even the tiniest delay, a drawer, a lock, a login screen, can interrupt an impulse and create a moment for choice. It's easier to skip the cookie when you have to climb a stool to reach it. It's easier to avoid scrolling when you have to reinstall the app. That gap? That's your opportunity. 3. Design for the habit, not the fantasy. Don't build an environment for the version of yourself you hope to be one day. Build it for the real habits you want to support today. If you want to write, don't design an aesthetic study nook you never use. Set up a small, distraction-free corner with your laptop and headphones. If you want to exercise, don't wait for the perfect home gym. Lay out a mat, keep dumbbells nearby, or hang your workout clothes where you'll see them. Make it easier to start than to avoid. 4. Use location-based anchors. Assign specific habits to specific places. Meditate only on the balcony. Stretch only in the living room. Work only at the desk, never in bed. This physical association strengthens consistency. Your body begins to expect certain behaviors in certain spaces. Even if your environment is small, you can create zones. One chair for journaling, one table for focused work, one corner for breaks. Space shapes attention. Use it with intention. 5. Stack your habits with environmental cues. Combine 2 triggers, behavior plus space. For example, after making coffee, cue, I write my top priority in my notebook, behavior. After brushing my teeth, I stretch for 2 minutes. After turning off my alarm, I sit up and breathe deeply. This is called habit stacking, and when linked with environmental cues, objects, smells, sounds, it becomes even stronger. Your coffee mug becomes a prompt for focus. Your yoga mat becomes a gateway to clarity. Your journal becomes a mirror for identity. 6. Make the desired behavior the path of least resistance. We're lazy by nature, and that's not an insult. It's biology. We conserve energy. So the easier something is, the more likely it is to happen. So engineer ease. Place your gym shoes by the door. Use tech blockers to limit distractions. Keep only healthy snacks at eye level. When a habit is frictionless, it becomes effortless, and effortlessness becomes identity. 7. Let your environment whisper, not scream. The most powerful cues are ambient, not aggressive. Don't fill your room with motivational quotes. Fill it with evidence of your actions. A calendar with your streak. A wall of books you've read. A clean desk you return to every day. These are quiet reminders. You're doing it. Keep going. Now let's look at Ben. He wanted to write more, but never found time. So he redesigned his space. He moved his desk away from the TV, put his phone in another room during writing hours, hung a whiteboard with a daily word target, placed his favorite author's book beside his keyboard. The result? He wrote more in 1 month than the past 6. Not because he became someone new, but because his environment allowed the real him to emerge. So ask yourself, what's in my space that nudges me forward? What's in my space that pulls me off track? What can I remove, add, rearrange, or repurpose? Because your environment is either a silent coach or a sneaky saboteur. The goal is to make doing the right thing the easy thing, And once that's in place, we'll turn to the final layer: resilience. How to sustain your habits not just in ideal conditions, but through stress, chaos, and life's inevitable disruptions. You've built the habit. You've shaped your environment. You've found your rhythm. But then, life happens. Stress, illness, travel, deadlines, disappointment, sudden change. And in a flash, the habits that once felt easy suddenly feel distant, fragile, and hard to return to. This is where most people fall off, but not because they lack discipline, because they lack a resilient strategy. Habits don't fail because you missed a day. They fail because you didn't plan for the messy middle. Let's fix that. 1. Redefine success on hard days. On great days, your full habit gets done. You go to the gym, cook the healthy meal, write the full page. But on bad days, your brain screams, "Skip it. You're tired." It won't matter. This is where your backup plan saves you. The key is to shrink the habit without breaking the chain. If you can't do a 30-minute workout, do 2 minutes of stretching. If you can't journal a page, write 1 sentence. If you can't meditate for 10 minutes, close your eyes and breathe for 10 seconds. This is called minimum viable consistency. It's not about performance, it's about presence. You're showing up no matter what. Even in chaos, you're casting a vote for your identity. 2. Build flexible routines. Rigid systems break under pressure. Resilient systems bend. They adapt without disappearing. That means building routines that have a floor and a ceiling. Floor: the smallest version of the habit you'll do on hard days. Ceiling: the full version you'll do when energy is high. This spectrum creates space for reality. You're not stuck in all or nothing thinking. You're choosing what's possible today, and that question keeps momentum alive. 3. Use the restart ritual. Even the most consistent people fall off. What matters most is how quickly you come back. The key is to have a pre-decided ritual for return. Something simple, predictable, gentle. Examples: put on the same playlist and go for a walk. Brew a cup of tea, open your notebook, and write, "I'm back." Do your most familiar stretch or prayer or breath work. This signals to your mind, we're returning. It's okay to start small. No judgment, just reconnection. You're not starting from zero. You're picking up where you left off, with more wisdom. 4. Expect setbacks, but don't let them surprise you. Most people are derailed by adversity not because it happens, but because they didn't plan for it. Build resilience by asking in advance, what will I do when I feel overwhelmed? What's my plan if I get sick or travel? How will I handle a missed day without spiraling? Answering these questions gives you psychological insurance. When the storm hits, you're ready. And readiness breeds calm. 5. Anchor to your identity, not your mood. When you feel off, return to who you are, not how you feel. Ask, what would the disciplined version of me do today? What does the version of me who honors commitments choose right now? These aren't aspirational questions. They're reclaiming questions. You're not faking it. You're remembering, and that remembering restores alignment. Even when your body is tired, your values aren't. Even when your motivation is low, your principles remain. 6. Reframe the dip as a deepening falling off doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're in the work. Every setback invites reflection. Every pause creates perspective. Use it. Ask, what did this dip teach me? What trigger did I miss? What system can I adjust? That question turns failure into feedback, and feedback fuels growth. 7. Forgive quickly, return gently. Resilience is not about toughness. It's about kindness with direction. When you miss, forgive. When you fall, rise slowly if needed. Let the return be soft. Speak to yourself like a coach, not a critic. Okay, that happened. Let's go again. This emotional safety is what makes habits sustainable, because the longer you shame yourself, the harder it is to start again. And shame is not a motivator, it's an anchor. Release it. Let's take Lucas. He was building a meditation habit. 30 days strong. Then his partner got sick. His schedule unraveled. He missed 5 days. He almost quit. But instead of spiraling, he used his restart ritual. Sat down, lit the same candle, and breathed for 30 seconds. It wasn't long. It wasn't deep. But it was enough to remind himself, you're still the guy who meditates. That's resilience. Not perfection, but return. So ask yourself now, what's your minimum version of the habit? What's your plan for the next setback? What will you do to come home to yourself when life pulls you away? Because the most powerful habits are not built in ideal conditions. They're forged in friction. And the person you become in those moments, that's the real you. In the next section, we'll talk about the compound effect. How these tiny moments, stacked over time, don't just change your behavior, but reshape your entire trajectory. Big change rarely arrives as a grand moment. It shows up as quiet accumulation. 100 small wins, 1,000 tiny decisions. One subtle shift repeated until it becomes who you are. This is the compound effect. The principle that small habits, repeated consistently, create extraordinary results over time. But here's the tricky part. In the beginning, you see almost nothing. You meditate for a week, but your mind still races. You go to the gym, but your body looks the same. You save money, but your bank account barely grows. And so you're tempted to quit. Because effort without immediate reward feels pointless. But it's not. It's laying bricks. Invisible now, inevitable later. Let's use the metaphor of bamboo. For years, bamboo grows underground. You see nothing. But its root system is expanding, strengthening. Then, in one season, it shoots up to 90 feet in just weeks. Was that growth sudden? No, it was delayed. That's how habits work. 1. Why small habits matter more than big moves. We overestimate the impact of a single event, a breakthrough, a big win, a life-changing moment. But real transformation, it's what happens between those moments. Saying no to dessert, waking up 10 minutes earlier, reading a page instead of scrolling, pausing before reacting. These are not dramatic, but they're powerful because they shift your trajectory, even by 1%. Let's do the math. If you improve just 1% daily, you'll be 37 times better in a year. That's exponential growth. 2. The plateau of latent potential. We live in a culture obsessed with speed. We expect results now, but change is nonlinear. Most of your effort lives in a valley of invisibility, a period where results are building, but not yet visible. This is what James Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. It's where most people quit, but the truth is, the work is working. You just can't see it yet. It's like heating ice from 25 degrees to 31 degrees. Nothing moves. But at 32 degrees, everything shifts. Keep going, you're 1 degree away. 3. The power of tiny gains. Let's look at a real example. The British cycling team. For nearly a century, they were mediocre. Then they hired Dave Brailsford, who focused on a philosophy called the aggregation of marginal gains. His idea? Improve everything by just 1%. Bike seats, hand washing, pillow quality, even massage gel. The result? In 5 years, they dominated the Olympics and Tour de France. Not because of one huge change, because of 1,000 tiny ones. Your life can work the same way. 4. The math of momentum. Here's what compounds. Time compounds into experience. Focus compounds into depth. Kindness compounds into trust. Effort compounds into mastery. Every action is a seed. You don't know which one becomes a tree, but you keep planting. Because compounding is faith in motion. You're trusting that small steps create big futures. And that's not blind hope. It's mathematical certainty. 5. Your actions are votes. And votes add up. Every time you repeat a behavior, you cast a vote for your identity. One vote won't change you, but enough votes, they elect a new version of you. If you vote for health, even when tired. If you vote for patience, even when angry. If you vote for creativity, even when uninspired. Over time, those votes accumulate, until suddenly, you've become what you practiced. 6. Protect the chain. When building momentum, one of the most important principles is, don't break the chain. That doesn't mean perfection. It means, avoid losing the rhythm. Missing once is okay. Missing twice is a reset. Protect the rhythm, even if the habit is small. Even one breath, one word, one page. Because consistency compounds, and broken chains take longer to rebuild. 7. What seems small now will seem obvious later. Your future self will look back and say, of course I write every day. Of course I stretch in the morning. Of course I meditate before bed. But that certainty doesn't appear overnight. It's earned, one quiet repetition at a time. At first, your habits feel like whispers. Later they speak for you. Take Elena. She started with 5 minutes of journaling 3 times a week. Nothing fancy, but she stuck with it. 3 months later, she found herself writing every day. Pages, ideas, reflections. Not because she pushed harder, but because the compound effect kicked in, and her identity caught up to her behavior. So what does this mean for you? Don't seek explosive change. Seek reliable rhythm. Don't chase breakthrough days. Chase better routines. Don't ask how fast. Ask how long you'll stay. Because the longer you stay, the more it builds. And the more it builds, the less effort it takes. At first, you shape your habits. Then, your habits shape you. In the final section, we'll bring it all together. Identity, systems, resilience, and momentum. And look at how this journey becomes not just a method for change, but a philosophy for life. In the end, this journey was never about habits alone. It was about who you're becoming. Every small action, every quiet choice, every gentle return to your path. It all adds up to something far greater than results. It becomes your legacy, the way you live, the values you embody, the energy you leave in every room. Let's tie it all together. 1. You are what you repeat. Not once, not when it's easy, but daily, especially when no one is watching. You've learned that identity is not declared, it's voted on. That each tiny decision, however mundane, is a ballot cast. And over time, those votes don't just stack up, they transform you. 2. Systems. Goals. Goals give direction. Systems create movement. Anyone can set a goal. But who you become depends on your systems. The routines you return to. The structures that catch you when life shakes. The cues and designs you put in place to make good behavior inevitable. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And that's empowering, because systems are within your control. 3. Environment is the silent coach. We often blame ourselves for failure. But the truth, your environment shapes you more than your willpower ever will. You've learned to make the good path easy and the bad one hard. You've designed your space to cue action, reward effort, reduce friction, and reinforce identity. And in doing so, you've realized that discipline is not about grinding harder. It's about setting yourself up to win. 4. Resilience is the true superpower. Everyone starts strong, few stay consistent. But now you know that consistency isn't perfection. It's recovery. It's having a floor you never fall below. A ritual that brings you back. A mindset that forgives, adjusts, recommits. You've built your restart system, so even when you fall, you don't fall far. 5. Small wins compound into greatness. You've stopped chasing the extraordinary. You've started honoring the ordinary done well. 1 sentence written, 1 breath taken, 1 mindful bite, 1 honest conversation. These moments don't seem like much, until one day, they are everything. Because small wins, compounded, create massive shifts. That's not just productivity, that's freedom. 6. Your habits shape the future. You never see, You may never fully witness the ripple effect of your habits. The child you influence by reading daily. The friend you inspire by walking away from your phone. The coworker encouraged by your calm, consistent presence. Your habits are not just personal. They are relational, generational, spiritual. They speak long after the moment ends. They shape the culture around you. 7. There is no finish line. This isn't a 30-day plan. It's a philosophy. There's no arrival. There's just deepening, refining, becoming. You'll grow. Life will shift. Priorities will evolve. But now you have the tools, not to control everything, but to respond wisely, to stay grounded, to start again and again. That is mastery. Let's end with Maya's story. She wasn't trying to become someone famous. She just wanted to feel more like herself again. So she started waking up 15 minutes early, drinking water, taking walks, writing one grateful sentence. Nothing dramatic, but after a year, her health improved. Her relationships deepened. Her business grew. Not because she chased intensity, but because she honored consistency. She didn't shout for change. She whispered it into being, day by day. So can you. 8. What you do today echoes your future is not written in dreams. It's etched in habits, in how you speak to yourself, in the way you prepare your space, in what you choose when no one sees. That's how you bend your life towards something better. And every day, you get a new vote, a new chance, a new brick to place on the path of who you're becoming. So here, at the close of this journey, ask yourself one question. What vote will you cast today? Then cast it, and let the person you're becoming rise to meet you, one action at a time.